A few years ago, a survey found that a huge number of adults couldn't cover a small emergency expense without borrowing money. Not a luxury, not a vacation, just one unexpected bill, a car repair, a medical payment, a broken appliance. One surprise and their whole financial life started shaking. Now think about that. How can someone work hard every day, earn money every month, and still feel like they're one bad week away from disaster? That's the question this audiobook is about. Because being broke is not always about laziness. It's not always about intelligence. And it's definitely not always about how much money you make. There are people with average incomes quietly building wealth, and there are people earning six figures who are drowning in debt, stress, and financial pressure. So what's the difference? Habits, small money habits, repeated over and over, month after month, year after year. That expensive dinner to treat yourself when your credit card is already screaming. The new car payment that makes you look successful but keeps you trapped. The paycheck that disappears before you even understand where it went. The belief that saving can wait, investing is for later, and somehow things will magically work out on their own. They usually don't. And that's the hard truth most people avoid. Money problems rarely come from one giant mistake. They come from tiny patterns that feel normal, safe, deserved, even. But those patterns quietly keep people stuck, living paycheck to paycheck, depending on debt, and trading more and more time for less and less freedom. This audiobook is called 5 Money Habits That Keep You Poor, and if you're listening right now, there's a good chance you felt at least one of these habits at work in your own life. Maybe you earn money, but never seem to keep it. Maybe your debt keeps growing even though you're trying your best. Maybe you thought by now you'd be further ahead. Or maybe you're simply tired of money stress, tired of financial confusion, tired of wondering if this is just how life is supposed to feel. It's not. And here's why you need to listen all the way to the end. Because this is not just another audiobook telling you to work harder, cut coupons, or skip coffee and somehow become rich. This is about seeing the real behaviors that quietly steal your future and learning how to replace them with habits that actually build security, control, and wealth. By the end of this audiobook, you will understand why some people stay financially stuck for decades, even when they earn more money. You'll learn how debt becomes a trap, why most people save the wrong way, why a paycheck alone is never enough, and how wealthy people think differently about spending, ownership, and freedom. Most importantly, you'll have a clear roadmap. Not theory, not fantasy, not motivation that disappears by tomorrow morning. A real roadmap. One that can help you stop leaking money, start making smarter decisions, and begin building assets instead of just paying bills. This audiobook may challenge some of the things you've believed about money. Good. That's how change begins, because the goal is not to look rich. The goal is not to impress people. The goal is not to survive until the next paycheck. The goal is freedom. Freedom from panic. Freedom from bad debt. Freedom from needing every dollar you earn just to keep your life from falling apart. So if you're ready to stop repeating the money habits that keep people poor and start building the habits that create real wealth, let's begin. Chapter 1. The Invisible Cage. Why so many people stay broke without realizing it. Have you ever wondered why some people work hard for 20 or 30 years and still never seem to get ahead? Not lazy people, not careless people, hardworking people. The kind of people who wake up early, sit in traffic, answer emails, deal with difficult bosses, raise kids, pay bills, and carry the weight of everyday life on their backs. The kind of people who are doing everything they were told to do. Go to school, get a job, work hard, be responsible, stay out of trouble, and yet somehow they still feel trapped. They earn money, but it disappears. They get a raise, but life somehow gets more expensive. They try to save, but an emergency wipes it out. They make progress, then a bill, a setback, or a bad decision pulls them right back to where they started. Why does that happen? Because many people are living inside what I call the invisible cage. It doesn't look like a cage from the outside. That's what makes it so dangerous. It looks like a normal life, a car payment, a rent payment or mortgage, a few subscriptions, some credit card debt, a paycheck that comes in and goes right back out, weekend spending that feels deserved, a little stress that feels normal, a lot of financial pressure that everyone around you also seems to have. And because it looks normal, people don't question it. They think, this is just adulthood. This is just how life works. Everyone is stressed about money. I just need to make a little more. But the invisible cage is built from habits, beliefs, and patterns that keep you financially stuck without making a loud sound. It doesn't slam shut all at once. It closes inch by inch, one impulsive purchase at a time, one borrowed dollar at a time, one ignored bank statement at a time, one lifestyle upgrade at a time, 1 year of saying, I'll deal with it later. That's how people stay broke without realizing they're building their own prison. And here's the painful part. Many people think the problem is lack of income when the real problem is lack of awareness. Now let's be honest. Income matters. If someone is underpaid, dealing with inflation, supporting a family, or facing real economic hardship, money can absolutely feel impossible. This chapter is not about blaming people for every struggle. Life is expensive. Systems are imperfect. Emergencies happen. But even inside those realities, habits still matter. Because if two people earn the same amount, why does one slowly build peace while the other stays in panic? Why does one gain control while the other keeps spinning? Why does one use money as a tool while the other becomes controlled by it? The answer often begins in the mind long before it shows up in the bank account. Money is emotional before it is mathematical. That's something most people never learn. People think money problems are just about numbers. Add more income, cut a few expenses, problem solved. But if that were true, every raise would fix people's lives. Every high earner would be wealthy. Every lottery winner would stay rich. They don't. Because money decisions are often driven by emotion, identity, insecurity, fear, and habit. Have you ever bought something not because you needed it, but because you were stressed? Have you ever told yourself you deserved a reward after a hard week, even if your account was nearly empty? Have you ever avoided checking your bank balance because you didn't want to feel bad? Have you ever kept spending just to feel normal around people who seem to be doing better than you? That's not just spending. That's psychology. A person can be brilliant, talented, and hardworking and still sabotage their finances because money touches something deeper. It touches self-worth. It touches status. It touches fear. It touches control. For some people, spending feels like relief. For others, debt feels like survival. For others, looking successful matters more than becoming secure. This is why the cage is invisible. It's not made of bars, it's made of beliefs. Beliefs like, I work hard so I deserve this. I'll start saving when I make more. Debt is normal. I'm bad with money anyway. There's no point in investing because I'm too far behind. I just want to enjoy life now. Those beliefs sound harmless. Sometimes they even sound reasonable, but repeated long enough, they become financial destiny. Let's take a simple example. Imagine a person named Daniel. Daniel gets paid every 2 weeks. He works hard and earns enough to cover his basic expenses, but each time he gets paid, he feels a burst of relief. He orders food. buys a few things online, upgrades something small, pays the minimum on his credit card, tells himself he'll save next month, then next month comes. A tire blows out. A friend invites him on a trip. A birthday comes up. Stress hits. He spends again. Not wildly, not recklessly, just enough to keep himself from feeling deprived. On the surface, Daniel doesn't look irresponsible. He's functioning, he's employed. He pays most of his bills on time, but year after year he stays in the same place. No savings, growing debt, constant stress, always one step from falling behind. What's keeping Daniel trapped? Not one disaster, a pattern. That's what keeps most people poor, not dramatic collapse but quiet repetition. And repetition feels safe because it becomes familiar. The human brain loves familiar patterns even when they're destructive. Why? Because familiar feels predictable. Predictable feels safe. So people repeat financial habits that hurt them simply because those habits feel normal. They grew up around debt, so debt feels normal. They saw adults use shopping as comfort, so they do the same. They never learned how assets work, so earning and spending feels like the entire game. They associate wealth with greed, risk, or other people, so they unconsciously avoid building it. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to reject good financial advice before they even try it? They'll say things like, "That won't work for me. I'm not the investing type. I could never own property. I don't make enough to save. Rich people are just lucky." Sometimes those are statements. Sometimes they're shields. Because if you believe change is impossible, you don't have to face the discomfort of changing. And change is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to admit that your habits are costing you years of freedom. It's uncomfortable to realize that some of the things you call rewards are actually chains. It's uncomfortable to stop copying the financial behavior of people who are also struggling. But discomfort is where freedom begins. The invisible cage loses power the moment you can see it. So what does seeing it look like? It means noticing that more income won't fix spending with no boundaries. It means noticing that debt used for consumption steals from your future. It means noticing that looking rich and being rich are opposites far more often than people think. It means noticing that every automatic habit, every swipe, every payment, every excuse is shaping your life. Awareness changes everything. A person who is unconscious with money keeps repeating. A person who becomes conscious starts choosing. And choice is where power lives. Let's make this practical. How do you know if you're inside the invisible cage? Here are a few warning signs. You feel temporary excitement when money comes in, then anxiety when it leaves. You rely on your next paycheck before it arrives. You treat debt as part of your monthly lifestyle rather than something to remove or use carefully. You increase your spending every time your income increases. You avoid looking closely at your numbers. You think financial peace is always someday, never now. You believe one big break will solve what small habits keep creating. If any of that sounds familiar, don't panic. This is not the moment for shame. Shame keeps people stuck. Clarity moves them forward. You do not need to be perfect to become financially strong. You need to become honest. Honest about what your habits are costing you. Honest about the stories you tell yourself. Honest about the difference between comfort and progress. Here's a powerful truth. Poverty is often loud in the bank account, but quiet in behavior. It hides in daily choices that seem too small to matter, rounding up every purchase in your mind because it's only a little. Keeping subscriptions you don't value because canceling feels annoying. Paying interest month after month because minimum payments feel easier. Buying things to manage emotions you haven't learned to face in healthier ways. Delaying investing because you think small amounts don't count. but small amounts do count. Small habits are the steering wheel of your financial life. A plane can be off by just a few degrees and end up in a completely different place. Your money works the same way. A few repeated choices can lead to peace or panic, freedom or dependence, ownership or endless obligation. So what can you do starting today? Start with a financial reality check. Not next month, not when life calms down. Today, look at your last 30 days of spending. Every dollar, don't judge it, just study it. Ask yourself, what does this spending say about my priorities? Ask, did I use money intentionally or did money use me? Ask, which expenses brought real value and which were emotional reactions? Ask, if I repeat this exact month for the next 5 years, where will I end up? That last question matters. Because most people don't need a miracle to see their future. They need honesty. If you keep doing what you've been doing, what happens? More peace or more pressure? Then identify your triggers. What makes you spend when you should? Stress, boredom, comparison, loneliness, celebration, convenience. When you know the emotion, you can interrupt the behavior. If stress leads to spending, build a different stress response. Take a walk, call someone, journal, delay every non-essential purchase for 24 hours. If comparison leads to spending, reduce exposure to the people or platforms that keep making you feel behind. If disorganization leads to overspending, automate your basics and create a simple system. This is where change becomes real, not in motivation but in design. Another step, separate survival from performance. A lot of people spend money to perform a version of success they haven't actually built. They lease the car, upgrade the phone, wear the label, go to the place, post the picture. Why? Because in a world obsessed with appearance, looking stable can feel safer than being honest. But performance is expensive, and ownership is quiet. Real financial progress often looks boring from the outside. It looks like saying no, driving the paid-off car, skipping the upgrade, saving before spending, investing before celebrating, building slowly without applause. That may not impress the world. It will impress your future. Have you ever wondered why wealthy people who keep their money often seem less flashy than people trying to look wealthy? Because one group is buying freedom, the other is buying attention. Attention fades, bills remain, freedom compounds. This chapter is about recognizing that financial struggle is not always the result of one obvious problem. More often, it's the result of invisible habits that feel normal until you finally stop and question them. That question changes everything. Why do I spend this way? Why do I believe this? Why am I repeating what isn't working? Why am I funding a lifestyle that keeps me anxious? Why am I postponing the very habits that could save me? The person who asks better money questions starts living a better money life. So don't just listen to this chapter. Use it like a mirror, see the cage, name the bars, challenge the beliefs, track the patterns, tell the truth. Because the moment you can see what's keeping you trapped, you are no longer trapped in the same way. You are awake. And once you're awake, you can begin building something different. Not a life that looks rich, a life that feels free. Chapter 2, Habit 1, Spending to Look Rich Instead of Building Real Wealth. Have you ever noticed how some of the people who look the richest are often under the most financial pressure? They drive the shiny car, wear the expensive watch, post the vacation photos, order without checking prices, upgrade everything the moment a newer version appears. From the outside, it looks like success. It looks like they've figured life out. But if you could open the books on their financial life, you might find something very different. Car loans, credit card balances, zero investments, no emergency fund, no real assets. a lifestyle that depends entirely on the next paycheck arriving on time. That's not wealth. That's performance. And one of the most common habits that keeps people poor is spending money to look rich instead of using money to become rich. There's a huge difference between those two things. Looking rich is about appearance. Being wealthy is about ownership. Looking rich is about consumption. Being wealthy is about control. Looking rich says, "See what I bought." Being wealthy says, "See what I own." Most people are taught how to consume long before they are taught how to build. From a young age, we are surrounded by messages telling us that the good life is visible. The car, the clothes, the home, the brand names, the upgrades, the status symbols. The idea is simple: if you buy the right things, people will respect you. You'll feel successful. You'll signal that you matter. And if you don't have those things, you may feel behind even if you're doing fine. That's the trap. Have you ever wondered why people stretch their finances for things they don't even need? Why someone making average money signs up for luxury payments? Why a person with credit card debt still feels pressure to wear expensive labels? Why people celebrate raises by increasing their bills instead of increasing their investments? It's not because they're stupid. It's because status is emotional. People don't just buy objects. They buy identity. They buy belonging. They buy approval. They buy distance from insecurity. That's why someone can know on a logical level that they shouldn't spend the money and still spend it anyway. A nicer car doesn't just feel like transportation. It feels like proof. Designer clothes don't just feel like fabric. They feel like confidence. A bigger house doesn't just feel like shelter. It feels like arrival. The marketplace understands this very well. Advertisers are not selling you a product. They're selling you a version of yourself, more admired, more attractive, more powerful, more successful, more worthy. And if you're not careful, you begin financing a fantasy. Let's be honest. Almost nobody gets into financial trouble by buying one giant gold-plated mistake. Most people drift into it through 100 little choices made to maintain an image. A more expensive apartment than they really need. A car payment that eats up future freedom. A phone upgrade every year. Luxury habits that quietly become normal. Dining out not because they love it, but because it feels like what successful people do. Shopping to keep up with people who may also be broke. That last one matters. Many people are trying to keep up with people who are financially fragile themselves. You see the outside. You don't see the monthly payments. You see the trip. You don't see the debt behind it. You see the outfit. You don't see the anxiety that paid for it. This is one of the great illusions of modern life. Visible wealth is often borrowed, while real wealth is often hidden. The truly wealthy don't always look how people expect. In fact, many people who build real wealth are surprisingly ordinary on the surface. They drive practical cars, wear simple clothes, avoid flashy spending, live below their means. They don't spend their money proving they have money. Why? Because they understand a simple principle. Every dollar you spend on looking rich is a dollar that cannot go toward becoming financially free. That expensive car payment. It's not just a payment. It's money that could have gone into investments. That luxury item bought for status. It's not just a purchase. It's capital that could have been used to buy an asset. That lifestyle inflation after every raise. It's not just enjoyment. It's a delay in freedom. And freedom is the real goal. Not attention, not applause, not being mistaken for wealthy by strangers. Freedom. Freedom means your bills don't control your choices. Freedom means you can survive a setback. Freedom means your money starts working harder than you do. Freedom means you can say no to bad opportunities because you're not desperate. Freedom means peace. Now think about this. What if some of the things people call success are actually expensive traps? A luxury car that requires years of monthly payments, a giant home filled with maintenance costs, a wardrobe designed to impress people who aren't paying your bills, a lifestyle so inflated that even a good income feels tight. That's not success. That's pressure with better lighting. There's a real-life pattern you see all the time. Someone gets a raise, promotion, or new job. For a moment, this should improve their financial position. They have more income, more breathing room, a chance to save, invest, or pay off debt. But instead of using the raise to build wealth, they upgrade their lifestyle immediately. Better car, better neighborhood, better furniture, more nights out, more subscriptions. More "I deserve this." Soon, their new income is fully absorbed by new expenses. They're still living paycheck to paycheck, just at a more expensive level. This is called lifestyle inflation, and it is one of the fastest ways to stay broke while looking successful. Have you ever asked yourself why earning more doesn't always feel like progress? Because if your spending rises with your income, your life may look better while your financial foundation stays weak. You don't become wealthier by increasing what people can see. You become wealthier by increasing what you keep, what you own, and what produces more money. Let's talk psychology for a moment. Why does looking rich feel so tempting? Because humans are social creatures. We care about status, whether we admit it or not. We care how we are perceived. We want signs that we're winning, progressing, maturing. In many ways, spending becomes a shortcut to emotional satisfaction. You didn't build inner confidence. Buy outer signals. You don't feel secure. Buy symbols of power. You feel behind. Buy proof that you're not. But there's a dangerous downside to using money this way. When spending becomes emotional, it becomes hard to stop. You're no longer buying with intention. You're buying relief. And relief is expensive when it has to be purchased over and over again. A lot of people are not addicted to spending. They are addicted to what spending helps them feel for a moment: respected, included, successful, rewarded, distracted, important. The problem is that those feelings don't last. So the cycle repeats. Buy, feel better, regret, rationalize, repeat. This is how people stay broke in nice shoes. Now let's flip the picture. What does building real wealth look like? It often looks quieter than people expect. It looks like buying a reliable car instead of a flashy one. It looks like saying no to upgrades you can afford on paper but don't need in reality. It looks like investing before indulging. It looks like owning assets that generate income or grow in value. It looks like having cash reserves, low stress, and fewer monthly obligations. It looks like discipline. And yes, discipline can feel less exciting in the short term. Nobody posts a picture of their emergency fund. Nobody gets instant social approval for maxing out retirement accounts or buying index funds. Nobody gets admired at dinner for not financing a luxury watch. But that's because the world celebrates visible consumption more than invisible stability. Don't let the world's applause determine your financial choices. You have to decide what game you're playing. Are you trying to look successful for the next 30 seconds? Or are you trying to build a life where money no longer controls you? Those are two very different paths. Here's a practical example. Imagine two friends, Marcus and Eli. Both earn the same salary. Marcus spends heavily on appearance. He leases a luxury car, rents a place slightly above his comfort zone, wears premium brands, and spends freely on experiences that keep him looking successful. He gets attention. People assume he's doing extremely well. Eli lives differently. He drives a modest car, keeps his housing reasonable, invests automatically every month, avoids debt, and buys fewer things. He doesn't look flashy. Some people may even assume he's less successful. Fast forward 10 years. Marcus has memories, sure, but also debt, stress, and very little to show for his effort. Eli has investments, flexibility, lower monthly pressure, and a growing pile of assets quietly buying him freedom. Who was actually rich? That question matters because many people are using the wrong scoreboard. They measure financial success by what they can display. The better measure is what you can sustain, what you can survive, and what you own that grows without your constant labor. So how do you break the habit of spending to look rich? Start by asking a question before every major purchase. Am I buying this for value or for validation? That one question can save you years of financial pain. Then ask, will this item improve my life or just improve my image? Would I still want this if nobody else could see it? Is this purchase moving me toward freedom or toward more dependence? What asset am I delaying by buying this liability? That last question is powerful. Every time you buy something expensive for status, ask yourself what that money could have become. Could it have reduced debt? Could it have funded an emergency reserve? Could it have been invested? Could it have gone toward a business, real estate, or another asset? Could it have bought peace instead of appearance? Another useful step is to create what I call a private wealth identity. Most people have a public identity. They want to look like someone who's doing well. Build a private one instead. Become the kind of person who gets satisfaction from net worth, not attention, from ownership, not display, from security, not status, from options, not image. Train yourself to admire different things. Admire the person with no consumer debt. Admire the person who can go months without panic. Admire the person quietly investing every month. Admire the person who resists the urge to impress. Admire the person building a future no one can see yet, because that person is often far closer to freedom than the loudest spender in the room. You can also put barriers between emotion and spending. Wait 48 hours before any non-essential purchase over a set amount. Unfollow social media accounts that trigger comparison. Spend time with people who value stability over appearances. Track how much status spending has cost you over the last year. Be honest. Redirect part of that money into an investment account and watch how different it feels to own instead of display. There's something deeply empowering about watching your money accumulate instead of disappear. At first, it may not feel glamorous. Then one day, it starts to feel better than any purchase. Why? Because money saved and invested gives you something that status spending never can. Leverage, breathing room, confidence, time, choice. That is real luxury, not the kind people see. The kind people feel. Have you ever met someone who was calm around money? Not showy, not performative, just calm. They didn't need to prove anything. They didn't seem desperate to signal success. They made decisions without panic. That calm often comes from financial substance, from knowing they own more than they owe, from having margins in their life, from not living for other people's opinions. You can build that. But you have to stop confusing consumption with progress. A new purchase can make you feel successful for a day. A growing asset can make you stronger for decades. So the next time you feel the urge to buy something mainly because it looks impressive, pause, ask yourself, who am I trying to convince? Why do I need this to be seen? What would happen if I chose peace over performance? The world will always tempt you to spend for status. Real wealth asks you to play a different game, a quieter game. A slower game, a smarter game, one where your money is not used to decorate your life while your future stays fragile, one where your money becomes a worker, a builder, a protector, a source of freedom, because the truth is simple. You can look rich and stay trapped. Or you can build wealth and eventually become unshakable. Choose the version of success that still works when no one is watching. Chapter 3. Habit 2. Living without a plan and wondering where the money went. Have you ever looked at your bank account and thought, how is that possible? I just got paid. That moment hits hard. You weren't buying yachts. You weren't throwing money out the window. You were just living. Groceries, gas, a few meals out, a subscription here, a quick online order there, a bill you forgot was due, maybe something for the kids, maybe something to make yourself feel better after a rough week. Then suddenly the money is gone, and all that's left is confusion. Where did it go? That question is more than frustration. It's a warning sign. Because one of the fastest ways to stay poor is to live without a plan and keep acting surprised when your money disappears. Now let's clear something up right away. A financial plan does not mean living like a robot. It doesn't mean every dollar has to be squeezed until life feels joyless. It doesn't mean you need spreadsheets so detailed they look like military blueprints. A plan simply means your money has direction before it leaves your hands. Without direction, money drifts, and drifting is expensive. Most people don't lose control of their money through one giant mistake. They lose control because their money is making decisions without them. Bills are coming in, habits are running in the background, emotions are driving purchases, and convenience is taking the wheel. By the time they notice the damage, the month is almost over. That's what happens when money lives on autopilot, but the autopilot is set by impulse instead of intention. Have you ever wondered why some people earn decent money and still feel broke all the time? Often, it's not because they earn too little. It's because they don't tell their money where to go. They react instead of plan. They spend first and analyze later. They hope things work out. Hope is not a money strategy. If you don't assign your money a job, it will disappear into whatever feels urgent, emotional, or easy in the moment. That's why people say things like, I don't know where it all goes. I barely buy anything, but I'm still broke. I'll start budgeting when I make more. I'm just not good with numbers. Here's the truth. This is not really about numbers. It's about attention. Money rewards attention. What you track tends to improve. What you ignore tends to control you. A lot of people avoid planning because they think planning will make them feel restricted. But the strange thing is, not planning creates even more restriction. When you do know where your money is going, every purchase creates low-level anxiety. Every bill feels like an ambush. Every emergency becomes a crisis. You feel guilty when you spend and stressed when you save. That's not freedom. That's chaos. A plan doesn't restrict you. A plan reveals reality. And reality is where power begins. Think about a road trip. If you and I got in a car and started driving with no destination, no map, no fuel check, no idea where we were headed, would we call that freedom? For about 10 minutes, maybe. Then confusion would set in. Then wasted time. Then wasted gas. Then maybe panic. Money works the same way. Without a destination, every turn feels random. Without a map, every expense feels harmless until you're lost. Without a fuel check, you break down at the worst time. A financial plan is not punishment, it's navigation. Let's talk about why so many people resist it. One reason is emotional discomfort. Looking closely at your money can bring up guilt, fear, embarrassment, and regret. You may see purchases you can't justify. You may realize how much went to things that didn't matter. You may face debt you've been trying not to think about. So instead of confronting it, you avoid it. And avoidance feels good in the short term. If you don't look, you don't have to feel bad. If you don't calculate, the problem stays blurry. If you keep it vague, you can still tell yourself it's not that serious. But vagueness is where bad habits survive. Clarity kills denial. That's why one of the most powerful financial moves you can make is also one of the simplest. Look directly at what's happening, not someday, not when things get better. Now. Another reason people avoid planning is that they confuse budgeting with deprivation. They imagine a budget as a strict parent standing over them, saying no to everything fun. But a good budget doesn't exist to stop your life. It exists to protect what matters most. It lets you spend on purpose instead of from guilt. It helps you enjoy what you buy because you know you can afford it. It makes room for both responsibilities and joy. It replaces surprise with control. Have you ever paid for something you wanted and still felt anxious about it? That usually happens when there's no plan behind the spending. Even fun becomes stressful when your financial foundation is shaky. Now imagine the opposite. You buy something because it fits your plan. The bills are covered. Savings are happening. Debt is being handled. You know exactly where you stand. That purchase feels completely different. Same item, different emotional experience. That's what a plan gives you: peace. Let me give you a real-life example. Imagine a woman named Sarah. Sarah earns a respectable income. Not millionaire money, but enough to make progress. Yet every month she feels behind. She swears she's not overspending. She's just busy. She grabs food because she's tired. Shops online because it's convenient. Keeps a few subscriptions because canceling feels like a hassle. Pays bills as they come. Tosses a little at savings if there's anything left. At the end of each month, she feels the same frustration. I make too much to feel this broke. So one weekend, she finally sits down and reviews the last 60 days of spending. What does she find? Hundreds of dollars in random convenience spending. Subscriptions she forgot she had. Impulse purchases she barely remembers. Extra fees from poor timing. A pattern of emotional spending after stressful work days. No system at all, just reaction after reaction after reaction. That moment changes her. Not because she suddenly became a different person, but because she finally saw the truth clearly. And that's how change often starts. Not with a huge raise, not with a miracle, with awareness. Now think about this question. What if your money problems are not just about what you earn, but about the fact that your money has no mission? Every dollar that enters your life can do one of several things. It can disappear. It can support your life. It can reduce your stress. It can buy future freedom, or it can silently reinforce bad habits. If you don't choose, the default usually wins, and the default is rarely wealth. The default is convenience. The default is emotion. The default is short-term pleasure. The default is drift. That's why planning matters so much. It interrupts drift. So how do you stop living without a plan? Start by making your money visible. This sounds basic, but it's the foundation of everything. You cannot control what you refuse to see. Write down every monthly bill, every recurring subscription, every debt payment, every essential expense. Then look at your average variable spending: food, gas, shopping, entertainment, all the little categories that tend to blur together. Don't guess. Don't round in your favor. Don't tell yourself a flattering story. Use real numbers. A lot of people feel financial stress not because their situation is hopeless, but because their situation is foggy. Fog creates fear. Numbers create clarity. Once you know where the money is going, give every dollar a roll before the month begins. That's the key. Not after spending, before spending. Cover essentials first, then savings, then debt reduction, then investing if possible, then plan spending on lifestyle and fun. The order matters because most people do it backward. They live first, spend freely, save whatever scraps remain, and wonder why nothing changes. A plan flips that. It treats your future as a priority, not an afterthought. Have you ever wondered why "I'll save what's left" almost never works? Because there's usually nothing left. Money expands to fill the space available. If you don't claim some of it early, daily life will claim all of it for you. This is also why automation is powerful. If your savings, investing, or debt payments happen automatically, you reduce the chance of emotional interference. You no longer have to rely on motivation every month. Systems beat willpower. Another practical step is to build spending awareness in real time. Check your accounts regularly. Use an app or a notebook if that helps. Pause before purchases. Create a simple rule for yourself, like waiting 24 hours before buying anything non-essential over a certain amount. That pause can save you from countless regret-driven purchases. Why? Because many spending decisions are temporary emotions dressed up as permanent needs. You feel stressed, so a purchase feels like relief. You feel behind, so a purchase feels like progress. You feel bored, so a purchase feels like stimulation. But if you wait, the emotional charge often fades, and what seemed urgent suddenly looks optional. Now let's talk about guilt. Some people hear budget and immediately think, I don't want to feel bad about every little thing I buy. Fair. But the purpose of planning is not to make you feel guilty. It's to make you intentional. You are allowed to enjoy your money. You are allowed to have a life. You are allowed to spend on things that matter to you. The issue is not spending. The issue is unconscious spending. If eating out with friends truly brings you joy, plan for it. If travel matters deeply to you, create space for it. If you love books, fashion, fitness, or hobbies, great. A strong financial plan is not built around punishment. It's built around alignment. Your spending should reflect your values, not your impulses. That's a big difference. One way to do that is to create just 3 buckets in your mind: needs, wants, future. Needs keep your life running. Wants make life enjoyable. Future builds freedom. The mistake many people make is letting wants consume the money that should go toward the future. Then one day they wake up and realize they've funded years of comfort but not much security. Your future deserves a seat at the table. And here's something else most people never hear. Disorganization is expensive. Late fees, forgotten payments, unused subscriptions, duplicate purchases, food waste, impulse decisions because there was no plan. These all drain money quietly. A person can earn decent income and still leak thousands per year through simple disorganization. That's why one of the smartest financial habits is creating a weekly money check-in. Not a dramatic event. Just 20 or 30 minutes once a week to review spending, upcoming bills, account balances, and goals. That one habit can keep small problems from becoming big ones. Think of it like checking the dashboard in your car. You don't wait until smoke comes out of the engine to look at the warning lights. Your money deserves the same attention. Have you ever noticed how people will spend hours researching a vacation, a phone, or a pair of shoes, but almost no time planning how to use their income? That's backwards. Your paycheck is one of the most powerful tools in your life. It deserves a strategy. If you give your money direction, even a modest income can start creating stability. If you don't, even a strong income can feel chaotic. This is not about perfection. There will be months where life gets messy. Unexpected expenses happen. Plans need adjusting. You're not failing because reality changed. A plan is not a prison, it's a guide. The goal is progress, not flawless execution. And the emotional payoff is huge. When you start planning your money, something shifts. You stop fearing your bank app. You stop guessing. You stop wondering whether you can afford things. You stop feeling like money is happening to you. You become the one making the decisions. That is a powerful feeling. So if you've been telling yourself, "I'm just not a budget person," maybe the truth is simpler. Maybe no one ever showed you that planning is really about self-respect. It's saying, "My future matters, my peace matters, my goals matter. I'm not going to let every impulse steal from the life I'm trying to build." You don't need a complicated system to start. You need honesty. You need visibility. You need a simple plan. You need to stop treating financial confusion as normal. Because the habit of living without a plan doesn't just cost you money, it costs you confidence. It keeps you in reaction mode. It makes every month feel heavier than it needs to be. But once your money has a mission, everything changes. The same paycheck that used to vanish can begin building stability. The same income that felt too small can start creating momentum. The same person who once said, "I don't know where it all went," can become someone who says, "I know exactly what my money is doing." That's when money stops being a mystery and starts becoming a tool. Chapter 4. Habit 3. Using debt as a lifestyle instead of a tool. Have you ever wondered how someone can earn good money and still feel like they're drowning? Not because they don't work hard, not because they never try, but because every month starts with a promise and ends with a payment. A payment for the car, a payment for the phone, a payment for the furniture, a payment for the vacation they already forgot, a payment for the credit card, a payment for the other credit card, a payment for the thing they bought just to make life feel a little easier for a moment. That's the danger of debt when it stops being a tool and becomes a lifestyle. At first, debt can feel harmless, convenient even. You want something now. You don't have the cash. No problem, just swipe, tap, split it into 4 payments, finance it, worry about it later. And that phrase, "worry about it later," has quietly become the financial philosophy of millions of people. The problem is later always arrives. And when it does, the item is old, the excitement is gone, and the bill is still there. That's how debt traps people, not all at once, slowly, quietly, comfortably. One monthly payment doesn't feel like a crisis. Neither does 2 or 3 or 7. That's why debt is so deceptive. It lets you borrow a better-looking present by stealing from your future. It lets you live slightly above your means for a while, and in exchange, it keeps you financially weak for much longer. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to say yes to a monthly payment, even when the total cost would make you uncomfortable? That's not an accident. The modern economy is built to make debt feel normal. They don't want you focusing on the full price. They want you focusing on the monthly number. It's only this much a month. You can afford that. No interest for now. Buy now, pay later. That language is powerful because it shrinks the psychological pain of spending. It moves your attention away from ownership and toward affordability. You stop asking, "Should I buy this?" and start asking, "Can I manage this payment?" Those are very different questions. A person who thinks in total cost tends to act carefully. A person who thinks only in monthly payments can accidentally build a financial prison. And this is where people get stuck. They don't feel broke because of one huge debt decision. They feel broke because their life becomes stacked with obligations. A financed couch, a car note, student loans, credit card balances, retail payments, medical debt, personal loans, maybe even debt used to pay off other debt. Now their income is already spoken for before they even wake up. They're not just earning money, they're feeding a machine. That's what debt as a lifestyle looks like. You stop using debt occasionally and start depending on it to maintain your normal life. That's dangerous, because debt dependency changes the way you move through the world. You become less flexible, less patient, less able to handle surprises, less able to take risks that could actually improve your future. Less free. Your paycheck stops feeling like income and starts feeling like rescue. And rescue is exhausting when you need it every 2 weeks. Now, let's be fair. Not all debt is evil. That's where a lot of financial advice becomes too simplistic. Debt is not automatically bad. Bad use of debt is bad. A hammer can build a house or break a window. The tool is not the issue. How you use it is what matters. The problem is that many people use debt to buy things that go down in value, wear out, or disappear completely. They borrow for clothes, for gadgets, for meals, for entertainment, for vacations, for lifestyle upgrades they haven't earned. That kind of debt doesn't produce income. It doesn't build ownership. It doesn't make your future stronger. It just pulls future money into the present and charges you interest for the privilege. That's consumer debt, and it's one of the most common wealth killers in modern life. Consumer debt says, I want the feeling now, even if I pay for it for years. Wealth-building debt, on the other hand, is different. That's debt used with strategy, caution, and a clear expected return. Debt used to buy an asset. Debt used to acquire something that can generate income, appreciate in value, or increase your earning power in a meaningful way. Think about the difference. Borrowing money for a designer bag is one thing. Borrowing money for a business asset that helps generate revenue is another. Running up credit cards for a vacation is one thing. Using carefully structured financing for an income-producing property is another. One drains you. The other can potentially strengthen you. But here's the key word, potentially. Even good debt is only good if it is managed wisely, tied to something productive, and used by someone who understands the risk. Too many people hear the phrase, use debt like the wealthy, and run straight into bad decisions. They borrow without a plan. They assume all leverage is smart. They confuse ambition with math. That never ends well. So the real question is not, is debt good or bad? The real question is this debt making me stronger or weaker? That question can change your financial life. Have you ever wondered why debt feels so normal, even when it's crushing people? Because society rewards consumption immediately and punishes discipline quietly. If you buy the car now, people admire it now. If you skip the car and invest the money instead, nobody notices now. If you finance the trip, you get the pictures now. If you stay home and build your emergency fund, nobody applauds now. Debt often gives you the social reward first and the financial pain later. Discipline gives you the discomfort first and the reward later. That's why so many people choose debt. Not because they've thought it through, but because emotionally it feels easier in the moment. And debt can also become a coping mechanism. A lot of spending on credit is not about luxury. It's about emotion. People use debt when they feel behind, when they feel deprived, when they feel stressed, when they feel like they deserve something, when they want relief but don't have cash. So the card becomes a bridge between emotion and action. You feel bad, you buy something. You feel better for 10 minutes. Then the balance stays. This is why debt is often psychological long before it becomes mathematical. A person can know that the interest rate is terrible and still keep swiping because the swipe is serving an emotional purpose. It may be soothing anxiety. It may be numbing boredom. It may be helping them perform success. It may be compensating for a life that feels too heavy. But debt used as emotional relief is one of the most expensive forms of comfort on earth. Now let's make this real with an example. Picture someone named Alicia. Alicia has a decent job and a good heart. She's trying. But every time life feels stressful, money becomes the escape valve. She uses her credit card for small things, takeout when she's tired, gifts when she feels guilty, clothes when she wants a confidence boost, weekend spending because she's worked hard and wants to feel alive. None of the purchases seem huge, but over time, the card balance grows. Then interest starts stacking. Then she starts making minimum payments. Then one emergency happens and she uses the card again because she has no savings. Now she's paying for old stress with new stress. That is the debt cycle. And once you're in it, even your good intentions can work against you. You tell yourself you'll do better next month. You try to cut back, but the interest keeps growing. The balances don't move much. You feel discouraged. Then one bad week hits and you spend again. This is why debt can feel so sticky. It doesn't just take money. It drains hope. But here's the good news. Debt loses power when you stop treating it like normal life. Normal is expensive when normal means paying interest on a lifestyle you can't afford. You have to become a little abnormal if you want freedom. That means questioning what everyone else accepts. That means refusing payments that look harmless but steal flexibility. That means being willing to say, just because I can finance it doesn't mean I should buy it. That sentence alone can save you years. So how do you break the habit of using debt as a lifestyle? Start with brutal clarity. List every debt you have, every balance, every minimum payment, every interest rate, every due date, not because this feels fun. Because hidden debt grows in darkness. You need to know what you owe, what it's costing you, and how much of your monthly life is being consumed by past choices. This can be uncomfortable. Good. Discomfort is often the price of getting your power back. Once the debt is visible, separate it into categories. Which debt was used for survival? Which debt was used for consumption? Which debt might actually be tied to something productive? Which debt is actively harming your cash flow the most? This matters because not all debt should be emotionally treated the same way. Shame is not a strategy. Clarity is. Then ask yourself a hard question. If I had to pay cash for this today, would I still buy it? That question cuts through fantasy quickly. Most debt-fueled purchases only make sense when you remove the pain of paying all at once. That's exactly why financing is seductive. It lets you pretend the price is smaller than it really is. Next, stop adding new consumer debt. This is the line in the sand. You cannot dig yourself out while still digging. You cannot become debt-free while treating the credit card like a backup income source. You cannot build peace if every stressful week turns into a new balance. That may mean removing saved cards from your phone, leaving credit cards at home, deleting shopping apps, creating a 24-hour or 72-hour pause before non-essential purchases, using cash or debit for discretionary spending. Whatever creates friction is helpful. Friction protects you from impulse. Then build a small emergency cushion as soon as possible, even before all debt is gone. Why? Because without any savings, every surprise pushes you back toward borrowing. Even a modest emergency fund can break the cycle of something went wrong, so I had to use the card. After that, pick a debt payoff strategy and stick to it. Some people prefer the avalanche method, paying off the highest interest debt first. Some prefer the snowball method, paying off the smallest balance first for quick wins. The math favors one. The psychology may favor the other. Choose the one you'll actually follow. Momentum matters. And while you're paying down debt, don't just attack the balances. Attack the behavior behind them. What situations led to borrowing? What emotions made debt feel necessary? What beliefs kept you justifying it? What patterns need to change so you don't repeat the cycle once the debt is gone? Because getting out of debt without changing your habits is like drying the floor while the sink is still overflowing. Have you ever noticed how some people pay off debt and then fall right back into it? That's because they fix the symptom but not the system. The system might be no budget, no emergency savings, emotional spending, status spending, a habit of rewarding yourself with future payments, a belief that debt is just part of adult life. It doesn't have to be. You can choose a different way. A way where debt is approached cautiously, used rarely for consumption, and only considered strategically when it serves a real long-term purpose. A way where you buy fewer things but own more peace. A way where your paycheck belongs more to your future than to your past. A way where you sleep better because fewer people have a claim on your income. That's what financial strength feels like. It's not flashy. It's not exciting on social media, but it's deeply powerful. Imagine waking up and not having half your income already promised away. Imagine needing less just to stay afloat. Imagine a future where debt is not your emergency plan, your reward system, or your lifestyle enhancer. That future is possible, but it begins with a mindset shift. Debt should be a servant, not a master, a tool, not a way of life, a strategic option, not your default setting. The world will keep offering you easy payments. The world will keep telling you that you deserve things now. The world will keep shrinking giant costs into cute monthly numbers. You have to be the one who sees through it. You have to ask, what is this really costing me? What freedom am I giving up for this purchase? Am I solving a problem or postponing one? Is this debt creating value or just creating pressure? Those questions create wiser choices. And wise choices, repeated long enough, create freedom. Not overnight, not magically, but steadily. One less payment, one less excuse, one more intentional decision at a time. That's how you stop living on borrowed money and start building a life you actually own. Chapter 5. Habit 4. Saving what's left instead of paying yourself first. Have you ever told yourself, I'll save whatever's left at the end of the month? It sounds responsible. It sounds reasonable. It sounds like something an adult should say. And yet for most people, that sentence is one of the biggest financial lies they keep repeating to themselves. Because what's usually left at the end of the month? Not much. Maybe nothing. Maybe a tiny amount. Maybe less than nothing if the credit card stepped in to cover the gap. This is one of the most common habits that keeps people poor, treating saving like an afterthought instead of a priority. They pay the landlord first, the car lender first, the credit card company first, the phone company first, the streaming services first, the restaurant first, the online store first. Everybody gets paid before they do. Then they wonder why they never build security. Have you ever wondered why so many hardworking people stay financially fragile for years? A huge reason is this. They are the last person in line for their own money. That's what saving what's left really means. It means your future only gets funded if your present doesn't use up everything first. And your present is very good at using up everything first. Life always has a reason to spend. There's always a bill, always a birthday, always a sale, always a repair, always a craving, always a just this once, always a little emergency, always a little reward. If your savings plan depends on life becoming less demanding, you may wait forever. That's why the principle of paying yourself first matters so much. It flips the order. Instead of hoping to save after spending, you save before spending. Instead of treating your future like leftover space, you make it part of the plan. Instead of asking, can I save this month? You ask, how will I live after my savings are already handled? That single shift changes everything, and yet so many people resist it. Why? Because paying yourself first feels uncomfortable at first. It can feel selfish. It can feel unrealistic. It can feel like you're taking money away from your current life. But what's really happening is the opposite. You are finally protecting your future self from being abandoned by your current habits. That matters. Your future self is a real person. That person will need options. That person will face emergencies. That person will get tired. That person may want freedom, peace, and dignity. That person deserves more than your leftovers. Most people don't think this way because the world trains us to prioritize immediate demands over long-term security. The urgent always screams louder than the important. A bill due tomorrow feels more real than a future emergency fund. A sale ending tonight feels more emotional than retirement. A fun weekend feels more tangible than long-term stability. The human brain is wired this way. We naturally value immediate rewards more than distant ones. Psychologists call this present bias. In simple language, it means right now feels louder than later. That's why people know saving matters and still don't do it. Not because they're lazy, not because they're foolish, because the future is quiet and the present is loud. Paying yourself first is how you turn down the noise of the present long enough to protect the future. Let's make this personal. Imagine two people, Nina and Kevin. They earn about the same amount. Nina saves whatever's left after the month is done. She means well. She plans to save. She even feels guilty when she doesn't. But month after month, there's always something. A night out. A few impulse buys, higher grocery bills, a random expense, a stressful week, a trip she didn't plan for. At the end of the month, there's very little left. Kevin does something different. The day he gets paid, a fixed amount automatically moves into savings and investments. He doesn't wait to see what's left. He decides ahead of time what belongs to his future. Then he builds the rest of his month around what remains. A year goes by. Nina feels like she worked hard and has nothing to show for it. Kevin has a growing emergency fund, maybe some investments, and most importantly, momentum. Same income, different sequence, different outcome. That's the power of order. Money habits are often less about how much and more about when. Now let's talk about why saving what's left almost always fails. First, spending expands. Give people more room and many will use it, often without noticing. If there's money sitting in the checking account, it feels available. It invites spending. Not always reckless spending. Just casual, normal, everyday spending that feels harmless in the moment. This is why leftover saving is so weak. It assumes discipline will naturally beat convenience, emotion, and habit at the end of a long month. That's a bad bet. At the end of the month, people are tired. Decision fatigue is high. The excitement of saving is low. The temptation to spend is strong. And the money has already been exposed to 100 opportunities to disappear. Second, saving leftovers keeps your goals vague. When saving is optional, it becomes emotional. You save when you feel motivated. You skip it when life feels expensive. You tell yourself you'll make it up later. Later becomes next month. Next month becomes next year. That's how people lose decades without realizing it. Not through some dramatic collapse, just through delayed action. Have you ever wondered why small amounts of savings can still change a life? Because savings are not just about the amount. They're about the habit, the identity, and the stability they create. A person who saves consistently is training themselves to think differently. They are proving, month after month, I am someone who protects my future. That identity matters. It changes how you spend, how you plan, how you handle emergencies, and how you see yourself. Saving also creates emotional strength. When you have no savings, every surprise feels like danger. A flat tire becomes stress. A medical bill becomes panic. A job disruption becomes a crisis. You become dependent on credit, favors, or desperation. When you have savings, even modest savings, You breathe differently. You are not invincible, but you are less fragile. That reduction in fragility is one of the biggest benefits of saving, and yet it's often overlooked. People think saving is just about someday. It's not. Saving changes how you experience today. It lowers fear. It increases confidence. It gives you options. It helps you make better decisions because you are not constantly cornered. There's another psychological layer here. A lot of people don't save because deep down they don't believe small amounts matter. They think, what's the point of saving $50 or $100? That won't change my life. That belief is expensive because wealth rarely begins with dramatic amounts. It begins with repeated behavior. Small savings are not small when they become a system. They create consistency. They create trust in yourself. They create the discipline that larger wealth later depends on. A person who cannot save a little usually will not suddenly know how to save a lot when more money comes in. More income helps, but without the habit, more income often just creates more spending. That's why paying yourself first matters whether you earn modestly or generously. It trains you to build your life around priorities, not leftovers. So what does pay yourself first actually look like? It means choosing a percentage or fixed amount of your income that goes to you before lifestyle spending begins. Maybe it's 5%. Maybe it's 10%. Maybe it starts smaller because your situation is tight. The exact number matters less than the pattern. The pattern is what changes your life. The smartest way to do this is to automate it. Why? Because automation removes emotion from the process. If every payday sends money automatically into savings or investments, you don't have to negotiate with yourself each month. You don't have to keep trying to be disciplined. The system does the heavy lifting. And once the money leaves your spending account, you adjust. Humans are adaptable. We tend to shape our spending around what is available. If you consistently see less in your checking account because saving happens first, that amount starts to feel normal. This is one of the secrets of wealth building. Make the good behavior happen before the temptations have a chance. Now if you're listening and thinking, that sounds great, but I'm barely covering bills, hear me clearly, start where you can. This is not about perfection. This is about direction. Even if you begin with a tiny amount, the habit matters. $5, $20, $50, whatever is realistic. The goal at first is not to impress anyone. The goal is to break the pattern of always coming last. Because once you start, something interesting happens. You begin noticing the leaks. You become more aware of what you used to spend automatically. You become more intentional, not because someone forced you, but because your future now has a claim on your money. And that shifts your mindset from reactive to proactive. Let's also talk about the purpose of savings, because not all savings are the same. You need at least a few categories in your mind. First, emergency savings. This is your shock absorber. This is what keeps life from knocking you straight into debt every time something unexpected happens. Second, short-term planned savings. This could be for annual expenses, travel, insurance, repairs, or known upcoming needs. These are not emergencies. These are predictable costs that feel like emergencies only when you didn't prepare for them. Third, long-term wealth building. This is investing. This is retirement. This is asset accumulation. This is money that grows over time instead of just sitting still. A lot of people struggle because they treat all savings as one blurry pile. Then when something comes up, they drain it and feel like they're back at zero. Better to give your savings categories and purpose. Clarity makes consistency easier. Now let's deal with a common fear. What if I pay myself first and then don't have enough for the month? That's a real concern, And the answer is not to ignore reality. If your budget is truly too tight, then yes, the amount may need adjusting. But often the fear is bigger than the math. Many people are not actually too broke to start saving. They are too unstructured. They have leaks, habits, and impulse spending that have never been challenged because saving was never forced into the picture. When saving happens first, it exposes what your lifestyle can really support. That can be uncomfortable. You may realize the subscriptions need trimming. The takeout habit needs boundaries. The shopping impulse needs a pause. The "I deserve it" spending needs a new definition. That's not failure. That's awareness. And awareness is expensive only if you ignore it. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to save for something exciting, like a trip or a new gadget, but harder to save for something boring like an emergency fund? That's because the emotional reward is clearer. You can picture the trip. You can imagine the purchase. But peace of mind is less dramatic. Security is quieter. It doesn't come with photos. Still, boring money often creates the most beautiful life. A full emergency fund may not look glamorous. Automatic investing may not feel thrilling. Cash reserves may not impress your friends. But they will impress your future when life gets unpredictable. And life will get unpredictable. That's why paying yourself first is not a luxury habit. It's a survival habit for people who want to stop living one surprise away from panic. Here are some practical steps you can take immediately. Set a savings amount or percentage today, not someday. Today. Automate it to move the same day you get paid or within 24 hours. Keep savings in a separate account so it's not casually mixed with spending money. Name your accounts by purpose if your bank allows it. Emergency fund. Future home. Freedom fund. Names create emotional connection. Start small if needed, but increase the amount every time your income rises. Treat windfalls differently. Tax refunds, bonuses, gifts, or side income should not automatically become spending money. Send a portion straight to savings or investing before your lifestyle touches it. Track your progress monthly. Watching savings grow creates motivation. And most importantly, stop calling yourself bad with money if you've simply never had a system. The problem may not be your character. The problem may be your order. For years, maybe everyone else got paid first and your future got the scraps. Maybe you learned to survive that way. Maybe it even felt normal. But normal is not always wise. Normal is not always safe. Normal is not always freedom. You can build a new normal. One where saving is not what happens if life is easy. One where saving is what happens because your future matters. One where you stop waiting for leftovers and start making yourself a priority. Think about what that means. It means you are no longer living as if every dollar belongs to the present. It means you are creating proof that your future deserves funding. It means each payday becomes more than survival. It becomes a chance to strengthen your position. And over time, those small acts become something bigger. A cushion, a habit, a sense of control, a growing identity, a life with more options and less fear. That's what paying yourself first really is. It's a declaration. A declaration that you will no longer let your future be financed by hope alone. A declaration that you are done being last in line. A declaration that your money will begin serving your life, not just escaping from it. Save first. Then live on the rest. That's not deprivation. That's self-respect. Chapter 6. Habit 5. Ignoring assets and depending only on a paycheck. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to get richer even when they're not working harder than you? They don't appear more stressed. They don't always seem more talented. They're not necessarily working longer hours. And yet, Year after year, their financial life gets stronger while others stay stuck in the same cycle. What's the difference? Very often, it comes down to one thing. Some people work for money. Other people build things that make money work for them. That thing is called an asset. And one of the most dangerous money habits a person can have is ignoring assets and depending only on a paycheck. Now let's be careful here. There's nothing wrong with a paycheck. A paycheck can feed your family, pay your bills, fund your goals, and create stability. Most people begin there. Some people stay there their whole lives. The problem is not earning a paycheck. The problem is believing a paycheck alone will make you wealthy. It usually won't. A paycheck is active income. You trade time, skill, energy, and attention for money. If you stop showing up, the money usually stops too. That creates a fragile system. It may work for a while. It may even work very well for a while. But it leaves you exposed. What happens if you get sick? What happens if your industry changes? What happens if your company downsizes? What happens if burnout hits? What happens if inflation rises faster than your raises? What happens when you want more freedom but all your income still depends on your labor? That's the trap of paycheck-only thinking. It keeps you in a loop where your financial life is tied almost entirely to your ability to keep producing. And eventually, that becomes exhausting. Many people don't realize how risky this is because paychecks feel familiar. They feel solid. They feel normal. You work, you get paid. It makes sense. It feels responsible. But responsible is not always enough. A paycheck is income. It is not necessarily wealth. Wealth is what you own. Wealth is what continues to serve you after the workday ends. Wealth is what grows whether you are clocked in or not. That's where assets come in. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket, grows in value over time, or both. A business can be an asset. A rental property can be an asset. A stock portfolio can be an asset. A piece of intellectual property can be an asset. A profitable side hustle can become an asset. Even skills, when turned into systems or ownership, can become assets. The point is simple. Assets create leverage. And leverage is how people stop depending on one stream of earned income for survival. Have you ever noticed how some people get a raise and still don't seem secure, while someone else with a more modest income appears calm and stable? That's often because the second person has ownership. Ownership changes the game. When you own things that produce value, your life becomes less dependent on constant effort alone. When you own nothing, your income must keep carrying the entire load. That is a heavy load. Now let's talk about why so many people ignore assets. One reason is education. Most people are taught how to earn, not how to own. They are taught to study, work, get promoted, maybe save a little and be careful. They are rarely taught how investing works, how businesses are built, how cash flow is created, or how ownership compounds over time. So they do what they know. They focus on the next paycheck, the next raise, the next overtime shift, the next client, the next bonus. Again, there's nothing wrong with increasing income. That matters. But if all income gets consumed and none of it gets converted into assets, the person stays on a treadmill. A faster treadmill maybe, a shinier treadmill, a better paying treadmill, still a treadmill. Another reason people ignore assets is that assets can feel intimidating. Stocks sound risky. Real estate sounds complicated. Business sounds overwhelming. Investing sounds like something for rich people. So they delay. They tell themselves they'll start later when they know more, earn more, feel more confident, or have more time. Later is expensive because assets grow with time. And every year spent not owning is a year spent missing compounding, experience, and momentum. Have you ever wondered why wealthy people are so focused on buying assets? Because they understand a truth that many workers never get taught. Income can make you comfortable. Assets can make you free. Comfort is nice. Freedom is better. Comfort says I can pay my bills. Freedom says my life doesn't collapse if my paycheck changes. Comfort says I'm doing okay this month. Freedom says I have things working for me in the background. Comfort can disappear quickly. Freedom is harder to shake. There's also a psychological reason people avoid assets. Assets often require delayed gratification. They require giving up some current consumption for future strength. And that is not easy in a world designed to reward immediate pleasure. Buying a new gadget feels immediate. Buying a broad market investment fund feels invisible. Leasing a nicer car feels emotional. Building a portfolio feels slow. Posting about a vacation gets attention. Quietly buying shares, learning a skill, or building a side business gets almost none. That's why asset building is not just a financial challenge. It's a psychological one. You have to care more about your future than your image. You have to value progress that nobody applauds at first. That takes maturity. And maturity with money often looks boring on the outside. It looks like setting aside part of your paycheck instead of upgrading your lifestyle. It looks like buying productive things instead of decorative ones. It looks like resisting the temptation to spend everything you earn just because you can. Now let's break down something important. There are generally two broad categories of things people buy: liabilities and assets. A liability takes money out of your pocket. An asset puts money into your pocket or grows in value over time. A car payment is usually a liability. Credit card debt is a liability. An expensive toy that loses value and creates maintenance costs is a liability. A share of a productive business can be an asset. A rental property that produces positive cash flow can be an asset. A business system that earns while you sleep can be an asset. Even cash reserves, while not exciting, can be a protective financial asset because they reduce fragility. Most poor and middle-income people spend much of their energy earning income and then using that income to buy liabilities. Many wealthy people earn income and then use that income to buy assets. That one shift changes lives. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine two people, Jasmine and Ryan. Jasmine gets paid, covers her bills, and spends the rest improving her lifestyle. Better car, better clothes, more dinners out, more subscriptions, more comforts, more I work hard, so I deserve this. Her income is decent, but every dollar gets absorbed by living. Ryan earns about the same. He enjoys life too, but he creates a rule for himself. Part of every paycheck must buy something that can grow or pay him back. He invests consistently. He builds a side skill into freelance income. He reinvests profits. He learns how assets work instead of just wishing he had more money. 5 years later, Jasmine has memories and monthly obligations. Ryan has a growing stack of assets. 10 years later, the gap becomes even wider. Why? Because assets compound. This is one of the most powerful forces in money. Not just compound interest in the technical sense, but compounding in all forms. Money invested can grow. Skills built can lead to opportunities. A business can create more income that buys more assets. One asset can help fund the next. Small ownership today can create disproportionate freedom tomorrow, but compounding needs time, and time only helps what you start. The paycheck-only mindset usually says, I'll invest when I have more. I'll think about assets once life settles down. I'm just focused on getting through right now. That mindset is understandable. Life is expensive. Responsibilities are real. But if right now consumes your entire life for 10 or 20 years, when does ownership begin? This is why even small starts matter. You do not need to become a real estate mogul next month. You do not need to launch a giant company next week. You do not need to be perfect. You need to start thinking like an owner. That begins with asking a different question every time money comes in. Not just, what do I need to pay? Ask, what can I buy that will make my future stronger? That question is powerful. It shifts your identity from consumer to builder. It makes you pause before spending. It reminds you that your paycheck is a tool, not just a lifeline. It forces you to think beyond the next bill cycle. Have you ever noticed how people can work for decades and retire with fear instead of peace? A big reason is that they spent most of their life maintaining a lifestyle and very little of it building ownership. Income came in, expenses went out, years passed. No real asset engine was built. That's not because they lacked worth. Often they lacked a framework. So let's build one. If you want to stop depending only on a paycheck, here are a few practical paths to begin acquiring assets. Start with financial assets. If you are brand new, this may simply mean investing regularly into low-cost, diversified funds. You don't need to become a stock-picking genius. You need consistency. Ownership in productive businesses through broad investments is one of the most accessible ways ordinary people can begin building assets. Then think about skill assets. What do you know how to do that others would pay for? Writing, design, coaching, repair work, teaching, editing, sales, coding, organizing, marketing. A skill can become a side income stream. A side income stream can become a business. A business can become an asset if it can operate with systems and repeat customers. Then consider business assets. This doesn't mean everyone needs to start a startup. It means thinking about how value can be created beyond your employer. A simple service business, digital product, licensing model, or small operation can become an asset over time if it generates cash flow and isn't tied entirely to each hour of your labor forever. For some people, real estate may be a path. For others, it won't be the first step. That's fine. The bigger principle matters more than the vehicle. Convert earned income into ownership. And here's a crucial point. Your first asset may not produce much money at all. That's okay. The first asset teaches you how to think, how to manage, how to wait, how to reinvest, how to separate consumption from construction. The amount matters less than the transformation. Because once you begin seeing money as something that can buy assets instead of just experiences, your financial life changes permanently. Now, there's another trap to avoid. Some people here build assets and immediately chase shiny opportunities with no understanding. They jump into risky deals, speculative investments, or businesses they don't understand because they're desperate to escape the paycheck. That desperation can be dangerous. Asset building should be intentional, not impulsive. Learn before you leap. Start small if needed. Understand the risks. Stay diversified. Don't let greed replace wisdom. A good asset is not just something exciting. It is something you understand well enough to own with confidence. Another practical step is to create an asset allocation habit in your monthly life. Every time you get paid, decide that a certain percentage goes toward buying or building assets, not after everything else. As part of the plan, this can be investments, this can be a business fund, this can be capital for a project that grows future income. This can be education that increases earning power if it's specific and strategic. The goal is to make asset building automatic, not occasional, because occasional effort creates occasional results. Systems create momentum. You should also begin measuring your progress differently. Most people track income. Smarter wealth builders also track assets. How much do I own? How much is growing? How much income could I earn if I stopped working today? How much of my monthly life is funded by ownership rather than labor? Those questions matter because they show whether you are actually becoming stronger or simply staying busy. Have you ever met someone who always seems tired, even though they're making decent money? Sometimes that tiredness is not from work alone. It's from the psychological burden of knowing everything depends on them. Every bill, every plan, every dream, every emergency. That is a lonely way to carry financial life. Assets lighten that load, not overnight but steadily. They create backup, then growth, then options, then confidence. Over time, that confidence changes the way you move. You negotiate differently, you choose differently, you panic less, you think longer term. You stop clinging to every paycheck as if it is your only source of safety. That is one of the deepest benefits of asset ownership. It gives you emotional breathing room, and breathing room changes lives. So if you've spent years doing the honorable thing, working hard, earning honestly, paying your way good, that discipline matters. Keep it. Just don't stop there. Don't spend your whole life being a great earner and a weak owner. Use your paycheck as the seed, not the destination. Use your labor to buy leverage. Use your income to build engines that keep working after you're done for the day. That is how you escape the trap of depending on one source forever. It starts small. It starts imperfectly. It starts with learning. It starts with asking a better question. What asset can I begin building now? Because the goal is not just to make money. The goal is to own things that make money. And once that shift happens, you are no longer just surviving the month. You are building a future. Chapter 7. The Mindset Shift. How the Wealthy Think Differently About Money. Have you ever wondered why two people can hear the exact same financial advice and walk away with completely different results? One person listens, applies it, stays consistent, and slowly changes their life. The other nods, gets inspired for a day, then slips right back into the same habits. What's the difference? A lot of the time, it's not knowledge, it's mindset. That word gets thrown around so often that people stop taking it seriously. But mindset is not just positive thinking. It's not pretending everything is easy. It's not repeating, "I am rich," in the mirror while your credit card balance climbs like a staircase. Mindset is the pattern of beliefs, emotional reactions, priorities, and assumptions that shape your money decisions every single day. And if you want to stop living like money is always slipping through your fingers, you have to understand something important. Wealth is built externally, but it begins internally. Long before money grows in your accounts, something has to shift in your thinking, because people don't just get rich with math. They get rich with behavior, and behavior follows belief. Have you ever met someone who always seems to sabotage themselves financially? They get a raise and immediately spend more. They start saving, then stop as soon as life gets uncomfortable. They pay off debt, then slowly drift back into it. They want freedom but keep choosing habits that delay it. From the outside, it looks irrational. But from the inside, it often makes perfect sense, because people act in ways that match their inner beliefs about money, success, identity, and what they think is possible for them. That's why mindset matters so much. If a person believes wealth is only for lucky people, they may never try seriously. If they believe rich people are greedy, they may unconsciously resist becoming wealthy. If they believe they're bad with money, they may keep proving that belief to themselves. If they believe saving is deprivation and spending is freedom, They will keep making choices that feel good now and painful later. This is not just finance. This is psychology. Money tends to magnify who you already are. If you are thoughtful, patient, and intentional, more money gives you more room to build. If you are impulsive, insecure, or emotionally reactive, more money can simply make your habits more expensive. That's why a mindset shift is so powerful. It changes what money means to you. And once that changes, your behavior starts changing too. So how do wealthy people think differently? Not all wealthy people, of course. There are reckless rich people and wise ordinary people. But in general, people who build lasting wealth tend to share certain mental patterns. The first big shift is this: they think long-term. Most people are trapped in short-term money thinking. What can I buy now? How can I feel better now? What can I afford this month? What reward do I deserve today? Wealth builders ask different questions. What will this decision cost me in 5 years? What happens if I repeat this habit for a decade? Am I buying comfort or building freedom? Is this helping future me or just pleasing current me? That way of thinking changes everything. Have you ever wondered why delayed gratification is so closely tied to wealth? Because wealth is often the result of sacrificing visible pleasure now for invisible power later. The world says, enjoy it now. Wealth says, build first, enjoy from strength. This doesn't mean wealthy thinkers never spend or never enjoy life. It means they understand timing. They know that saying no now can create a much bigger yes later. A person with a short-term mindset sees a raise and upgrades the car. A person with a long-term mindset sees a raise and upgrades their investments. A person with a short-term mindset asks, can I afford the payment? A person with a long-term mindset asks, what is this doing to my freedom? That's the difference between reacting and building. The second shift is emotional control. This one is huge. Money decisions are rarely just numbers. They are emotional events. Fear can cause people to avoid investing. Ego can cause them to overspend. Stress can push them into debt. Envy can make them copy lifestyles they can't support. Excitement can lead to reckless decisions. Shame can make them ignore problems until they get worse. Wealth builders are not emotionless. They simply learn not to let every feeling become a financial decision. That is a superpower. Have you ever bought something because you were tired, angry, lonely, bored, or trying to feel like you were doing okay? Most people have. The issue is not that emotions exist. The issue is whether your emotions are managing your money more than your values are. People who build wealth often create distance between feeling and action. They pause, they wait, they think. They let the emotional storm pass before making permanent money choices. This is one reason discipline matters so much. Discipline is not about being cold. It's about protecting your future from your temporary moods. The third shift is that wealthy thinkers focus on ownership, not appearance. We touched on this earlier, but it's worth going deeper. Many people want the symbols of wealth before they build the substance of wealth. They want the nice things, the visible lifestyle, the signals that tell the world I've made it. Wealth builders tend to ask, what do I own? What is growing? What produces cash flow? What gives me leverage? What reduces my dependence on labor? That's a very different mindset. One mindset is focused on looking successful. The other is focused on becoming unshakable. Have you ever noticed how social media rewards display more than discipline? Nobody gets celebrated for saying no to an unnecessary upgrade. Nobody gets flooded with attention for choosing a simple car and investing the difference. Nobody goes viral for quietly building a 6-month emergency fund. And yet those quiet moves often create more real power than flashy spending ever will. Wealthy thinking learns to admire what is invisible: stability, margin, cash reserves, growing investments, low stress, optionality. That last one matters a lot. Optionality is one of the greatest forms of wealth. It means you have choices. You can leave a bad job, handle a setback, take a risk, wait for a better opportunity, say no without panic. People with poor money habits often sacrifice optionality for image. People with strong money mindsets sacrifice image to build optionality. That's wisdom. The fourth shift is that wealthy thinkers see money as a tool, not an emotional identity. This is subtle but powerful. Some people use money to prove things, to prove they matter, to prove they've made it, to prove they're not behind, to prove they belong. That makes money emotionally heavy. Every spending decision becomes tied to self-worth. Wealth builders tend to separate self-worth from net worth. They may care deeply about money, but they don't need money to tell them who they are. That's why they can be patient. That's why they can make decisions that look unimpressive for a while. That's why they don't need every purchase to send a message. When money becomes a tool instead of an identity, you use it better. You stop trying to perform with it. You start directing it. The fifth shift is responsibility. This one can be uncomfortable, but it matters. People who stay stuck often spend a lot of energy blaming the economy, their parents, their boss, their lack of opportunity, bad luck, the system, other people who had a head start. Now, to be fair, some of those factors are real. Life is not equally easy for everyone. Some people are dealing with serious disadvantages. Some systems are unfair. Some hardships are not self-created. Still, the wealth-building mindset asks a harder but more powerful question. What can I control from here? That question is liberating, because as long as your energy is focused entirely on what's unfair, you may never fully engage with what's possible. Responsibility does not mean self-blame for everything. It means ownership of your next move. It means saying, maybe I didn't choose my starting point, but I can choose my habits. Maybe I made mistakes, but I can change my patterns. Maybe I didn't know before, but I know now. That kind of thinking gives you power back. Have you ever noticed how some people remain trapped in the same financial cycle because they keep repeating the same story? I'm just not good with money. I'll never get ahead. It's too late for me. People like me don't invest. I need to enjoy life because tomorrow isn't guaranteed. Stories matter because the story you tell yourself becomes the script you follow. Wealthy thinking requires editing the script, not with fake optimism, with useful truth. Instead of "I'm bad with money," try "I'm learning to manage money better." Instead of "it's too late," try "the best time was earlier, the next best time is now." Instead of "I could never do that," try "I don't know how yet." That little word, "yet," opens doors. Another difference in wealthy thinking is their relationship with risk. Poor money thinking often confuses all risk into one category. Investing, risky; starting a side hustle, risky; buying assets, risky; but staying dependent on one paycheck, never building savings, letting inflation slowly eat your purchasing power, that somehow feels normal. Have you ever wondered why people fear investing but not guaranteed stagnation? Because familiar risk feels safer than unfamiliar growth. Wealthy thinkers understand that avoiding all risk is impossible. The question is not whether risk exists. The question is which risks are worth taking and which risks are quietly destroying you already. There is risk in investing. There is also risk in never investing. There is risk in starting something. There is also risk in staying completely dependent forever. Once you see that clearly, your decision-making changes. Now let's make this practical. How do you actually build a wealth mindset if you weren't raised with one? Start by changing the questions you ask. Instead of "What can I afford?" ask "What creates value?" Instead of "How do I look?" ask "How strong is my position?" Instead of "What do I want now?" ask "What will matter later?" Instead of "Why is this happening to me?" ask "What can I improve from here?" Questions shape focus. Focus shapes behavior. Behavior shapes outcomes. Then pay attention to what you admire. This is more important than it sounds. If you admire flashy spending, you'll be tempted to copy it. If you admire discipline, ownership, and long-term thinking, your choices begin to align with those values. Choose better models. Study people who build quietly. People who talk about patience, not hype. People who understand that wealth is often a byproduct of habits, not drama. Another practical step is to reduce comparison. Comparison is one of the fastest ways to damage your financial mindset. It makes you spend emotionally, doubt your progress, and chase things that were never truly your goal. You see someone else's visible life and compare it to your invisible process. That is a losing game. You do not know what they owe. You do not know what they sacrificed. You do not know whether their lifestyle is sustainable. You do not know the full picture. Wealthy thinking focuses less on competition and more on construction. Build your plan, build your habits, build your resilience, build your assets. Let other people perform if they want to. You are building substance. It also helps to make your goals concrete. Be rich is vague. Have 6 months of expenses saved is clear. Invest a percentage of every paycheck is clear. Pay off this debt by this date is clear. Build one extra stream of income is clear. A good mindset is not just philosophical. It turns into measurable actions. That's how beliefs become reality. And here's something important. Wealthy thinking is not reserved for wealthy people. You do not need a high income to think like a wealth builder. You need intention. You need patience. You need honesty. You need repetition. A person with modest income and strong habits can be building wealth. A person with high income and poor mindset can be building a disaster. Mindset often comes first. So if you've spent years feeling like money controls your emotions, your identity, your options, and your confidence, don't accept that as permanent. You can learn to think differently, to pause differently, to choose differently, to value different things, to stop making short-term decisions that injure your long-term life. That is the shift. It's the moment you stop asking money to make you look successful and start asking it to make you stronger. It's the moment you stop seeing discipline as punishment and start seeing it as freedom. It's the moment you stop treating the future like a vague idea and start protecting it like it matters, because it does. The wealthy don't just have different bank accounts. They often have different lenses. They see money differently, time differently, risk differently, status differently, freedom differently. And once your lens changes, your life starts changing with it. Not all at once, not magically, but decision by decision. That's how wealth is really built, from the inside out. Chapter 8, Building a Wealth Machine, Creating Systems That Grow Money Automatically. Have you ever wondered why some people seem financially disciplined without looking like they're trying very hard? They don't seem to fight temptation every day. They don't appear to be constantly making dramatic money decisions. They're not posting motivational quotes every morning about hustle and sacrifice. And yet their savings keep growing. Their investments keep building. Their debt keeps shrinking. Their financial life gets stronger year after year. How? Usually it's not because they have superhuman willpower. It's because they built systems. That's what this chapter is about. If you want to stop staying poor, you have to stop depending on motivation and start creating a machine. A set of financial systems that quietly do the right thing even when you're tired, distracted, stressed, or busy. Because let's be honest, most people do not fail with money because they lack information. They fail because good intentions are too weak against everyday life. You mean to save, then the week gets expensive. You mean to invest, then something else feels more urgent. You mean to pay extra on debt, then your mood changes and the money disappears. This is why systems matter so much. Systems protect you from yourself. A good financial system reduces the number of times you have to be strong. It makes wise behavior automatic. It makes bad behavior harder. It removes friction from what helps you and adds friction to what hurts you. That is how real progress happens. Have you ever noticed how exhausting it is to rely on self-control for everything? Imagine if every month you had to manually decide whether to pay your bills, save money, avoid impulse spending, invest, and stay on budget. That creates constant decision fatigue. And decision fatigue is dangerous because every decision drains mental energy. By the end of the day, people don't make their smartest choices. They make their easiest ones. That's why a system beats a promise. A promise says, I'll try. A system says, it happens. And when it comes to money, it happens is much more powerful than I hope I remember. Think of a wealth machine like a row of gears. One gear moves another. Income flows in. A percentage gets directed to savings. Another percentage gets invested. Bills get covered. Debt gets reduced. Spending has limits. Progress keeps happening. Not because you feel inspired, but because the machine is built to move. That's how wealth is often built in real life. Quietly, repeatedly, automatically, not by giant acts of brilliance, by systems that work in the background. Now some people hear the word system and imagine something complicated, a giant spreadsheet, a complicated investing strategy, 10 bank accounts, a color-coded life. That's not what I mean. A good system is simple enough to maintain but strong enough to guide your money in the right direction. The best systems are boring. Boring is good. Boring is repeatable. Boring is reliable. Boring survives bad moods. And reliable beats exciting every single time. Have you ever wondered why people can earn a great income and still stay broke? Because income without a system leaks. Money comes in. Money goes out. Nothing gets captured. Nothing gets directed. Nothing gets built. The person thinks the answer is more income. Sometimes more income helps. But if the system is weak, more income often just creates more expensive mistakes. A weak system with higher income can still produce chaos. A strong system with moderate income can produce momentum. That's the power of design. So what does a wealth machine actually need? It needs 4 basic functions. First, it needs capture. That means some of your income must be intercepted before lifestyle spending consumes it. Second, it needs direction. Money needs assignments, not vague hopes. Third, it needs protection. You need barriers against the habits that usually pull you backward. Fourth, it needs repetition. A single good month does very little. A repeatable system changes a life. Let's start with capture. Most people let their paycheck land in one account and sit there like open prey. Then everyone gets a shot at it. Bills, apps, cravings, convenience, random spending, emotional decisions. By the time the dust settles, there's little left. A wealth machine captures money early. This might mean an automatic transfer to savings the same day you get paid. It might mean retirement contributions deducted before money even hits your checking account. It might mean an auto investment set to happen every payday. It might mean direct deposits split into separate accounts. The point is simple. If all your money is fully available for spending, much of it will be spent. Have you ever noticed how you tend to adapt to whatever amount is available in your checking account? That's human nature. We spend around what we see. If the full paycheck is visible, we often build our behavior around the illusion that it's all safe to use. A system removes that illusion. The second function is direction. Every dollar should know where it's going before your emotions get involved. Essentials: savings, investing, debt reduction, planned fun. Upcoming expenses: this doesn't have to be rigid, it just has to be intentional. A person without direction says, "Let me see what happens this month." A person with direction says, "This is what my money is doing this month." That shift is powerful. Money without direction becomes stress. Money with direction becomes strategy. The third function is protection. This is where you design your life to reduce the damage of bad habits. For example, if online shopping is your weakness, remove saved payment methods. If comparison triggers spending, clean up your social media. If you overspend when checking and savings are mixed together, separate them. If impulse buying gets you late at night, create a 24-hour purchase rule. If debt keeps creeping back in, lower your credit limits or stop carrying the cards. People often think financial success is about becoming stronger. Sometimes it's simply about becoming smarter with your environment. A good system does not assume you will always be calm, focused, and rational. It assumes you are human. That's why it works. The fourth function is repetition. One transfer means little. One good month is nice. One burst of discipline is not a wealth plan. Wealth loves repetition. Small actions repeated over time become massive results. A little saving every paycheck becomes a cushion. A little investing every month becomes a portfolio. A little extra toward debt becomes freedom. A little friction around spending becomes a completely different lifestyle over the years. This is how the machine grows. Now let's talk about psychology, because this is where systems become life-changing. Humans like to think they make decisions based on logic, but much of behavior is environmental and automatic. We act according to what is easy, visible, and familiar. That means if your environment makes spending easy and saving hard, you will probably spend more than you want. If your environment makes investing automatic and impulse buying annoying, you will probably invest more. Behavior is often less about character and more about setup. That should encourage you, because it means you don't need to become a different person overnight. You can redesign your setup. A simple example: imagine two workers with similar incomes. One gets paid into a single checking account. No automatic savings, no investment schedule, no spending categories, credit cards saved everywhere, no financial review habit, money is managed emotionally. The other gets paid and immediately has a portion redirected to a high-yield savings account, another portion sent into investments, bills paid from a separate account, and a weekly 20-minute money check-in built into the calendar. Spending money is limited to what remains. Over time, who wins? Not necessarily the more disciplined person. The better designed person. That's what a wealth machine is. Good design repeated long enough. Now here's something important. Automation should not mean mindlessness. You still need awareness. You still need to review. You still need to adjust. A system is not a substitute for attention. It is a support for attention. The ideal setup is this: automation handles the basics. Awareness handles the refinement. That means your key moves happen without fail, but you still check in regularly to make sure the machine is working. What should those check-ins include? Look at account balances, review recent spending, confirm savings and investments happened, check debt progress, review upcoming large expenses, adjust categories if needed, look for leaks, remind yourself of your bigger goals. This can be 20 or 30 minutes once a week. That small habit keeps your system alive. Have you ever wondered why people often abandon financial plans? Because they build plans that rely on perfect behavior. Perfect behavior doesn't exist. A strong system should survive real life. Busy weeks, stressful days, unexpected expenses, human emotions. That means simplicity matters. You don't need a complicated setup with 19 rules if you won't follow it. Better to have a simple machine that works than a brilliant one that collapses by next Tuesday. Here's a practical framework you can use. Think of your money in layers. Layer 1. Bills and essentials. This is the foundation. Housing, food, utilities, transportation, insurance, minimum obligations. Layer 2. Emergency stability. This is your savings cushion for surprises and irregular costs. Layer 3. Wealth building. This includes investing, asset purchases, and money directed toward future freedom. Layer 4. Lifestyle and joy. This is where guilt-free spending belongs. Most people reverse the order. They spend on lifestyle first, survive bills second, panic when emergencies happen, and neglect wealth building entirely. A wealth machine prioritizes in the opposite direction. Handle essentials, protect the base, build the future, then enjoy what remains without fear. That's not deprivation, that's structure. And structure creates peace. Now let's talk about specific automations that can change your financial life. Automatic savings transfer. Set money to move out of checking the same day you get paid. If possible, put it in a separate account you don't casually touch. Automatic investing. Use retirement plans, brokerage auto-invest, or recurring transfers into diversified investment funds. The less often you have to decide, the more likely it gets done. Automatic debt payments. At minimum, automate on-time payments. Better yet, automate extra payments toward priority debt if your cash flow allows it. Automatic sinking funds. Set aside money for expected future costs, car repairs, holidays, annual subscriptions, school expenses, insurance premiums. These stop predictable surprises from wrecking your month. Automatic bill pay. This reduces late fees, missed due dates, and mental clutter. Automatic increases. Every time your income rises, automatically increase savings or investments before your lifestyle expands to absorb the difference. That last one is a secret weapon. Raises are powerful moments. They can either build wealth or inflate lifestyle. Automation helps make sure at least some of every raise becomes future strength. Now here's a mistake people make. They think the system is working only if it feels dramatic. No. If your system feels quiet, that may be a great sign. The best financial progress often feels uneventful. The account grows a little. The debt falls a little. The investments build a little. Month after month. That's what you want. You are not trying to create emotional fireworks. You are trying to create durable results. A good wealth machine also includes spending boundaries. Not because spending is bad, but because unbounded spending can overpower even the best savings intentions. This might mean a weekly fun money amount, a spending cap for certain categories, a rule that any purchase over a set amount needs a waiting period, a monthly review of all subscriptions, a designated wants account that limits lifestyle spending automatically. Boundaries create freedom because they remove ambiguity. When there are no boundaries, every purchase becomes a little debate. That drains energy. A system ends the debate ahead of time. And there's one more piece that matters a lot: identity. Systems work best when they are tied to the kind of person you believe you are becoming. Not "I'm trying to save." Try "I'm someone who invests every payday." Not "I hope I stop overspending." Try "I'm someone who gives every dollar a job." Not "I need to get my life together." Try "I'm building a machine that protects my future." That identity shift is not fluff. It changes compliance. People tend to follow systems better when the system matches their self-image. So build the identity on purpose. You are not just reacting to bills anymore. You are not just hoping to be better next month. You are building a structure that supports the life you want. That life may include more peace, more freedom, more options, less panic, less decision fatigue, more assets, more breathing room. And all of that can begin with small systems. One transfer, one automation, one rule, one weekly check-in, one account separated from the rest, one layer of friction added to impulse, one layer of consistency added to progress. That's how machines are built, not in a single dramatic moment. Piece by piece. So if your financial life has felt chaotic, emotional, inconsistent, or fragile, don't just ask, how can I be more disciplined? Ask something better. What system would make the right choice easier? What can I automate? What can I remove? What can I simplify? What machine can I build that keeps working even when I'm not at my best? Those questions lead to freedom, because wealth is rarely built by people who feel motivated every day. It is built by people who create systems that keep moving on ordinary days. That's the magic of the wealth machine. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need perfect timing. It doesn't need constant emotion. It just needs to keep turning. And if you build it well, one day you'll look up and realize something extraordinary. Your money is no longer just passing through your life. It is starting to grow on its own. Chapter 9. From consumer to owner, turning income into assets that pay you back. Have you ever wondered why some people can earn money for years and still have very little to show for it? They worked, they sacrificed, they stayed busy, they paid bills, they bought things, they upgraded life little by little. And then one day they look around and realize they own very little that actually makes them stronger. That's because being a good consumer is not the same as being a good owner. A consumer uses income to buy things that are gone, worn out, or worth less over time. An owner uses income to buy things that grow, produce, or pay them back. That difference is everything. If you want to build wealth, you have to make a shift that most people never fully make. You have to stop seeing income only as something to spend and start seeing it as something to convert. Convert into what? Into assets, into ownership, into future cash flow, into leverage, into freedom. That's the journey in this chapter, from consumer to owner. Because the truth is simple. If all your income does is support your lifestyle, then your financial life depends on you staying in motion forever. But if part of your income gets turned into assets, then slowly, over time, your money starts carrying some of the weight. That changes everything. Most people are trained to be excellent consumers. Think about it. From the time we're young, we are surrounded by messages telling us what to buy, what to upgrade, what to wear, what success should look like. What kind of car means you've made it? What kind of house means you're doing well? What products signal status, comfort, or relevance? Very few people are taught to ask, what do I own? What is producing for me? What will this purchase do for me 5 years from now? Is this an expense or an asset? That's why even hardworking people can spend decades in motion without building much real power. Their income comes in and gets consumed. It buys convenience, image, comfort, distraction, and temporary relief, but not enough ownership. And ownership is what changes your future. Have you ever noticed how different it feels to buy something that loses value versus something that grows? One gives you a short emotional high. The other gives you long-term strength. A new gadget can feel exciting for a week. A productive investment can quietly serve you for years. A flashy expense gets attention. An asset builds options. and options are one of the greatest forms of wealth. Now let's slow down and define this clearly. What is an asset? In plain language, an asset is something that either puts money in your pocket, grows in value, or helps you earn more over time in a meaningful, measurable way. A stock investment can be an asset. A rental property can be an asset. A profitable business can be an asset. A digital product that sells repeatedly can be an asset. A skill that increases your earning power can become an asset when applied properly. A piece of intellectual property can be an asset. The key is that it gives back. That's what separates an asset from simple consumption. And this is where many people get stuck. They think ownership is for rich people. They imagine assets as giant buildings, businesses, or complicated investment portfolios. So they put themselves mentally outside the game before they even begin. That mindset is costly, because becoming an owner usually does not begin with a massive move. It begins with a habit of setting aside part of your income, a habit of learning, a habit of buying things that produce instead of just impress, a habit of asking, how can this dollar return to me? That one question can reshape your life. How can this dollar return to me? Most people never ask it. They ask, can I afford this? Do I want this? Would this make life easier? Would this make me look successful? Owners ask, will this money come back? Will it grow? Will it generate something beyond the initial purchase? That is a different lens. Have you ever wondered why many people feel trapped even with decent salaries? Because salaries can support consumption beautifully without ever creating independence. You can earn well and still stay stuck if your income only feeds your current life. You begin to feel the pressure of maintenance. The lifestyle has to be funded. The payments have to be made. The bills have to be covered. And the more your income gets absorbed by upkeep, the less power it has to build your future. That's why the consumer mindset is so dangerous. It trains you to treat every increase in income as permission to upgrade life, instead of an opportunity to expand ownership. The owner mindset does the opposite. It says, before I increase my lifestyle, I increase my assets. Before I celebrate income, I direct some of it towards something that can outlast this paycheck. Before I spend the raise, I ask what future strength it could buy. That is how wealth begins to compound. Let's look at a simple example. Imagine two people, both earning the same salary. Person 1 uses extra income to improve lifestyle. Better car, more dining out, nicer apartment, more shopping, more subscriptions, more little luxuries that feel deserved. Person 2 also enjoys life but creates one rule. A portion of every increase in income must go toward ownership. That might mean investments, a side business, a debt-free cash reserve, a course tied to a specific income-producing skill, seed money for a small project that can eventually generate revenue. 5 years later, person 1 may look more upgraded. Person 2 may be far more secure. 10 years later, the difference can become dramatic. That's because ownership compounds while consumption resets. Consumption gives you a moment. Ownership gives you momentum. Now let's talk about why the shift from consumer to owner is emotionally hard. One reason is that consumption is visible and immediate. Ownership is often quiet and delayed. When you buy something fun, you feel it now. When you buy an asset, the reward often comes later. Humans naturally lean toward immediate gratification. That's why this shift requires maturity and vision. It requires the ability to say, I care more about future freedom than present applause. That's not easy in a world designed to keep you consuming. Another reason the shift is hard is identity. Some people have spent so long using money to cope, reward, prove, signal, or escape that ownership feels emotionally flat by comparison. Buying an index fund doesn't feel as exciting as buying a luxury item. Building a side business doesn't always feel as glamorous as taking a trip. Saving capital for future opportunities can feel less satisfying than spending it on current comfort. That's why you need a deeper emotional connection to the idea of ownership. You have to start seeing assets as exciting, as empowering, as proof that your money is maturing, as evidence that you are no longer just surviving and consuming but constructing, because that's what you're doing. Constructing a life with more strength in it. Have you ever thought about the difference between buying things that make you look better and buying things that make your financial position better? One changes perception. The other changes reality. Reality matters more. So how do you begin this shift in practical terms? Start with a simple rule. Every time income comes in, some of it must go toward ownership. Not if there's leftover money. Not only when you feel inspired. Every time. This is how you train the owner mindset. You stop waiting for the perfect moment and create a permanent pattern. For some people, the first ownership move will be regular investing. For others, it may be building a cash reserve that protects against debt and creates optionality. For others, it may be funding a side hustle or acquiring tools that help create extra income. The form can vary. The principle should not. Income must be converted. Another important step is learning to separate productive spending from reactive spending. Productive spending strengthens your future. Reactive spending responds to an emotion, impulse, or social pressure. A productive purchase might be a low-cost investment fund, software for a real business, equipment for a side income stream, education tied to a measurable skill, a business asset that improves efficiency or output, a down payment on something that can generate cash flow if the numbers truly work. Reactive spending might be shopping because you're stressed, upgrading because others are, buying things to celebrate income before securing your future, spending on image because you want to feel more successful. The more clearly you can identify the difference, the stronger your financial life becomes. Now here's something people often miss. Not every asset has to start big. Your first asset might be small. That's fine. A small investment account is still ownership. A tiny side hustle is still ownership. A modest amount of productive capital is still ownership. A website, course, service, or system that earns even a little without direct hourly effort can be the beginning of ownership. What matters is that the pattern has started. Too many people underestimate small beginnings because they are comparing their chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. That kills momentum. Don't do that. The first step is not about impressing anyone. It's about changing your direction. And direction matters more than drama. Have you ever wondered why some people always seem to have opportunities while others stay stuck? One reason is that owners create options. Consumers use them up. When you build assets, you create capital. Capital can be reinvested. It can fund new moves. It can soften setbacks. It can open doors. That's why ownership creates a different relationship with time. Consumers need more income to keep going. Owners begin building systems where past income helps generate future income. That's leverage. Leverage is powerful because it means your life is no longer dependent only on this week's effort. Something else is beginning to contribute. Even if it starts small, that contribution changes your psychology. You stop feeling like every dollar must come from direct labor. You begin to understand what financial independence actually looks like. Not fantasy, but a gradual reduction in dependence. Now let's talk about reinvesting. This is one of the biggest habits that separates owners from consumers. Consumers receive money and ask, "What can I enjoy?" Owners often ask, "What portion of this should be put back to work?" That question creates compounding. If your investments grow and you keep adding to them, that compounds. If your side business earns and you reinvest part of the profits, that compounds. If your assets throw off cash flow and you use some of it to buy more assets, that compounds. This is how wealth starts accelerating, not from one lucky break, from repeated reinvestment. And yes, this can feel slow at first. That's normal. At the beginning, asset building often feels invisible. The numbers seem small. The growth feels modest. The process can test your patience. But slow does not mean weak. Slow and steady is often how durable wealth is built. Another practical move is to create an ownership account. This can be a separate savings or brokerage account dedicated to future assets. Its purpose is simple: hold money that will not be spent on lifestyle. This money has one mission: to buy things that strengthen your future. That could be investments, business capital, opportunity funds, education with clear return potential, tools, inventory, or systems that support income. The moment money has a dedicated purpose, it becomes harder to casually consume it. That's useful. Protection matters. You should also begin measuring progress in a new way. Most people track spending. Start tracking ownership. How much have you invested? What assets do you own? What income-producing tools or systems are you building? What percentage of your income goes toward future-producing resources? How much of your net worth is working for you? These questions make you think like an owner. And what you measure, you tend to improve. There's another mindset shift here that matters deeply: patience. Owners understand that wealth building is not always emotionally exciting. It is often repetitive. It may not look impressive for a while. It can feel like you are watering a tree that hasn't produced fruit yet. Keep watering it. A lot of people quit because they don't see instant results. But ownership is not instant coffee. It is planting. You plant, you protect, you nurture, you reinvest, you wait. Then one day, the thing that looked small begins to matter more than you expected. That's how asset building works. Now let's be realistic. Not every asset works out. Not every investment grows quickly. Not every business idea succeeds. Ownership still involves risk. That's why learning matters. Starting with what you understand matters. Diversifying matters. Avoiding hype matters. This is not about reckless chasing. It is about intelligent construction. You don't need to own everything. You need to own something, and then build from there. That is enough to begin changing your life. So if you've spent years in consumer mode, don't beat yourself up. Most people were trained that way. Most people were encouraged to live that way. Most systems around you profit from you staying that way. But now you know better. You know that income can do more than disappear. You know that money can buy more than comfort. You know that ownership is the bridge between working hard and eventually working less desperately. That's a powerful realization. It means your paycheck is no longer just fuel for bills. It can become seed. It can become leverage. It can become a future you don't have to fear. The shift from consumer to owner does not happen in one day. It happens purchase by purchase, paycheck by paycheck, decision by decision. You ask better questions. You make more intentional moves. You let fewer dollars die in consumption and send more dollars into construction. That is how you turn income into assets that pay you back. And once that process begins, something beautiful happens. Your money stops being just something you spend. It becomes something you send out to build a life stronger than the one you have today. Chapter 10. Your Financial Reset, the 90-day plan to stop staying poor. Have you ever had that moment where you say to yourself, something has to change? Not next year. Not when the economy improves. Not when you feel more motivated. Not when some miracle lands in your lap. Now, that moment matters, because awareness without action becomes frustration. Insight without movement becomes regret. And if you've made it this far in this audiobook, you already know the truth. Staying poor is rarely just about income. It's about habits, patterns, blind spots, emotional decisions, and years of living on autopilot. The good news is that habits can change. Patterns can be interrupted. Momentum can be rebuilt. You do not need to fix your entire financial life in one weekend. You do not need to become a stock market genius by Friday. You do not need to erase every mistake overnight. What you need is a reset. A reset is not a fantasy. It's a structured restart. That's what this chapter is about. A practical 90-day plan to help you stop repeating the habits that keep you poor and begin building a financial life with more stability, more clarity, and more control. Why 90 days? Because 90 days is long enough to create real behavioral change, but short enough to feel urgent. It gives you enough time to face reality, organize the chaos, interrupt the bad patterns, and start installing better systems. This is not about perfection. This is about direction. For the next 90 days, your goal is simple: stop leaking money, stop financing weakness, start building strength. That's it. Let's break this reset into 3 phases. Phase 1. Days 1 through 30, face reality and stop the bleeding. This is the hardest phase emotionally because this is where denial ends. Have you ever wondered why so many people stay stuck for years even when they want better? Because they never fully face the truth of what's happening. They guess. They avoid. They hope. They minimize. They tell themselves things aren't that bad, but vague money creates vague results. Your first 30 days are about clarity. Start by gathering the full picture. List every source of income. List every fixed expense. List every debt balance. List every interest rate. List every minimum payment. List every recurring subscription. List every account you have. List your cash on hand. List your savings, if any. List your monthly spending categories. Don't estimate if you can avoid it. Use real numbers. This can feel uncomfortable. Good. Discomfort is often the doorway to change. If you're afraid to look, ask yourself this: what has not looking cost me already? That question matters. Because avoidance feels safer than reality for a moment, but reality is what gives you power back. Next, review your last 30 to 60 days of spending. Every transaction, every swipe, every small purchase, every convenience habit, every moment where money was used to soothe emotion, impress someone, escape stress, or reward exhaustion. You are not doing this to shame yourself. You are doing this to identify the leaks. Ask, where is money quietly disappearing? What patterns repeat? What spending is actually useful? What spending is emotional? What spending is tied to image? What spending is simply disorganized? This is where many people get their first real breakthrough. They realize the problem is not just income, it's leakage. Then make 3 immediate cuts, not 50, just 3. 3 things that are clearly draining money without meaningfully improving your life. Maybe it's unused subscriptions. Maybe it's impulse online shopping. Maybe it's takeout 5 times a week. Maybe it's convenience spending that became automatic. Pick the easiest leaks to plug first. Why? Because early wins create momentum. Now create a basic survival budget, not a perfect budget, a clarity budget. Your only job right now is to organize your money into 4 categories: essentials, debt minimums, saving something even if small, everything else. This is not your forever plan. This is your reset plan. The goal is to stop the chaos, to know what your money must do before the month begins, to stop wondering where it went. During these first 30 days, put a freeze on unnecessary lifestyle upgrades. No treating yourself with borrowed money. No random splurges because you had a hard day. No pretending next month will save you. This is your reset window. Protect it. If possible, build a tiny emergency buffer right away. Even a few $100s helps. Why? Because without a cushion, every little surprise becomes another excuse to fall backward. Think of this first phase as financial triage. You are not trying to get rich in 30 days. You are trying to stop the bleeding. Phase 2, days 31 through 60, build the core system. Now that you can see the numbers and you've stopped some of the leakage, it's time to build structure. This is where most people either gain control or drift back into old habits, because clarity alone is not enough. You need a system. Start with automation. Set up an automatic transfer to savings every payday, even if it's small. The amount matters less than the pattern. Then automate your critical bills. Remove late fees, missed payments, and mental clutter. You want your financial life to require less emergency thinking. Now choose a debt strategy. If your debt is high-interest consumer debt, focus hard here. Pick your method. Smallest balance first for momentum, or highest interest first for efficiency. Either one can work. The key is commitment. Add any extra money from phase 1 cuts directly to debt reduction or emergency savings. Do not let that money drift back into lifestyle. This is also the phase where you begin separating accounts by purpose if that helps you. One account for bills, one for spending, one for savings, one for future investing if possible. Why does this matter? Because money gets easier to manage when it has boundaries. When everything sits in one place, it all feels available. That's dangerous. Have you ever noticed how much easier it is to overspend when your money has no labels? A system gives labels. Labels create clarity. Clarity reduces emotional spending. This is also the time to create your weekly money check-in. Once a week, sit down for 20 or 30 minutes. Review balances, check spending, look at upcoming bills, track debt progress, confirm savings happened. Ask yourself what needs adjusting. This habit alone can keep you from financial drift. Most people don't need more financial genius. They need more regular attention. You should also create one new spending rule in this phase. Keep it simple and strong. For example, any non-essential purchase over a certain amount must wait 24 or 48 hours. No using credit for wants. No purchases made while stressed, late at night, or emotionally triggered. One restaurant meal per week instead of 5. A cash limit for personal spending. The purpose of the rule is not punishment. It is interruption. You are interrupting the habits that used to run automatically. This phase is about turning your money from a chaotic flow into a guided system. And here's something powerful you'll start to notice. Once your money has structure, your anxiety often begins to fall. Not because all problems are solved, but because confusion is being replaced by control. That feeling is priceless. Phase 3, days 61 through 90, shift from survival to building. Now we move from defense to offense. This is where your reset becomes a launch point. By now, you should know your numbers better. You should have fewer leaks. You should have some structure. You should have a small system beginning to work. Now ask a bigger question. How do I make sure I never return to the exact same cycle? This is where asset building begins. Start directing part of your income, however small, toward ownership. Maybe it's investing. Maybe it's building a side income stream. Maybe it's funding a future business idea. Maybe it's buying your first financial asset. The size is less important than the shift. This is the moment where you stop seeing money only as something that disappears and start seeing it as something that can reproduce. That shift changes lives. You should also review your income honestly during this phase. Can you increase it? Not in a fantasy way, in a real, practical way. Can you ask for more? Take on extra work temporarily. Develop a skill that has market value. Sell something you no longer use. Offer a service. Freelance, tutor, consult. Create small extra streams that reduce pressure. A reset is not only about cutting, it's also about strengthening. But here's the key. If more income comes in, do not let it vanish into old habits. Direct it with purpose. Some to debt, some to savings, some to asset building. This is how you make progress visible. By day 90, your goals should be simple and measurable. For example, I know exactly where my money goes. I have a working budget. I've reduced or eliminated specific spending leaks. I've built a small emergency buffer. I've paid off one debt or reduced debt meaningfully. I've automated savings. I've started buying assets or investing. I've built a weekly money check-in habit. I no longer rely on hope to manage my finances. That is a real transformation, not because your life becomes perfect in 90 days, but because your direction changes. And changed direction, repeated long enough, changes destiny. Now let's talk about the emotional side of this reset, because this process will challenge your identity. You may realize that some of your spending was never about the thing itself. It was about comfort, status, stress relief, belonging, reward, avoidance. That can be hard to face. Have you ever wondered why some people know exactly what to do with money and still don't do it? Because the real fight is rarely just financial. It is emotional. Money often becomes a coping tool, a distraction tool, a performance tool, a relief tool. So during this 90-day reset, pay attention to your triggers. When do you want to spend most? After hard work, after bad news, when you compare yourself to others, when you feel deprived, when you feel invisible, when you want to celebrate. Awareness here matters because if you don't understand the emotional driver, you may fix the numbers temporarily and then fall back into the same cycle later. Replace the old response. Not perfectly, just intentionally. If stress triggers spending, create another stress ritual. Walk, call someone, journal, delay purchases. Step away from your phone. If comparison triggers spending, reduce the input. Unfollow accounts. Avoid the environments that make you feel behind. Remember that many people are performing wealth, not building it. If boredom triggers spending, create alternatives. Read, learn, build a side project. Do anything that reminds your brain that money is not the only form of stimulation. Now, one more important thing. Do not turn this reset into a punishment story. You are not being good for 90 days and then going back to old habits. You are not suffering through discipline so you can later reward yourself with self-sabotage. This is not a crash diet for money. This is a reset in identity. You are becoming someone who knows where their money goes, pays themselves first, uses debt carefully, builds assets, and values freedom more than appearances. That is who you are becoming. And identity matters because people protect who they believe they are. If you still secretly think of yourself as chaotic, bad with money, impulsive, or always behind, you may eventually act in ways that match that self-image. Build a new one. Say, I am someone who pays attention. I am someone who protects my future. I am someone who learns. I am someone who builds, not just spends. I am someone who can change. Those are not empty affirmations if your actions begin to support them. They become true through repetition. Let me give you a final example. Imagine someone named Marcus. For years, Marcus lived in reaction mode. He earned decent money but always felt behind. He used debt as a cushion, saved inconsistently, and never looked too closely at his spending. Every month felt slightly stressful, and every raise disappeared into lifestyle upgrades. Then one day he got tired of feeling like his paycheck was just passing through his life. So he committed to 90 days. He tracked everything, cut obvious leaks, automated savings, stopped adding new debt, set up a simple budget, paid down one card, built a small emergency fund, started investing a little, created a weekly money review, learned to pause before purchases. At the end of 90 days, Marcus was not suddenly rich, but he was no longer asleep. He had clarity. He had momentum. He had proof that his life could change. He had less chaos and more control. He had a system where there used to be confusion. That is what a financial reset can do. It wakes you up. It gives you traction. It turns hope into action. So if you've been waiting for the perfect time, let me say this clearly. The perfect time is a fantasy. The reset begins when you decide that drifting is no longer acceptable, not because you hate your past, because you respect your future. 90 days from now, you can be in the same cycle with the same stress, the same confusion, the same patterns, or you can be stronger, clearer, calmer, more prepared, more disciplined, more in control. That choice is closer than it looks. One decision, one plan, one honest look. One automated transfer, one canceled habit, one better month repeated. That's how staying poor ends, not through luck, through a reset. And your reset can begin today.